Gerard Brady, economic analyst with IBEC. 2013 so far has seen the recovery begin in the economy, but it's been pretty slow. So on the GDP side, GDP growth has been slower than we would have expected at the start of the year, mainly due to a fall off in exports because of the patent cliff. But employment has been very strong. Employment growth is going to be about 2.5% for the year, which is really impressive. So Q3 this year we're going to have about 58,000 more people employed than we did last year, which is really outstripping what we would have expected at the start of the year. For 2014, we're expecting the employment growth to continue to be strong, so over 2% at least, and that will feed into the real economy because the more people are employed, the more people are able to spend in terms of their consumption, in terms of the goods they go out and purchase every week, and because of that, we expect both exports to pick up because as the effects of the patent cliff washes out, but we also expect growth to pick up because domestic demand is going to be that little bit higher. Because more and more people are becoming employed. So the outlook for 2014 coming out of the bailout is actually going to be pretty strong, we reckon. We've seen pretty strong agriculture employment this year, but the agriculture employment comes with a lot of health warnings because of the effects of bringing in the 2011 census into the sample that they use to estimate employment. We're going to see next year, probably in the first few quarters of next year, what the real figures are for agriculture employment. It's actually hard to tell what is happening in the sector at the moment. We'll know a lot more next year and have a much better idea. From the export side, agriculture, food and live animal exports are up from about 500 million a month in 2010 up to about 750 in recent months. We've seen about an 8% increase in 2013, and we expect exports to continue to be strong from the agriculture sector next year. So we expect more growth both in employment and from the export side in 2014. So far, we've in the last 8 quarters, we've had 8 consecutive quarters now of private sector employment growth, and in the last 3 or 4 quarters that has fed through to overall employment growth. So employment's been growing. In Q3 this year we have about 58,000 more people employed than we did last year, and we expect that to keep growing even stronger. So in the graph you'll see we have had 8 quarters of private sector employment growth, and we expect that to continue into next year. So the patent cliff, essentially, we have many of the world's major manufacturers of pharmaceuticals in this country, from Pfizer all the way to even small Irish indigenous pharmaceutical companies. About 4 billion out of our 7 billion annual exports or monthly exports are in the pharmaceutical sector, are coming from the pharmaceutical sector, and a lot of those goods are patented goods. So when you look at any of the brand name drugs that you buy, there's a patent on any of them. What's happened in the last number of years, and it's been coming for a number of years, is that a lot of those drugs have actually ran out of patents. So patents only last for a certain amount of time. And what's happening now is that those drugs are coming off patent and are being replaced by generic drugs, so drugs that aren't brand names. So now that that's happening, a lot of the manufacturing companies that are based here, that are producing those patented drugs, are actually losing market share to generic drugs, and that's affecting our exports because they're such a high proportion of our exports. But it's not particularly feeding through into employment, and the reason is that the pharmaceutical sector employs about 30,000 people, which compared to its effect on exports and on overall GDP is actually small enough. The patent cliff in the last year has had a big effect on our GDP, but has not really had a huge effect on employment figures, which is why we've seen GDP growth being pretty slow, but employment figures growing very quickly. For 2014, we're looking pretty optimistic, both from the overall economy and for agriculture. I think for the overall economy, we're going to see a recovery in exports. We're also going to see a pickup in consumer spending on the back of stronger employment, and we're also going to see obviously stronger employment growth, which underpins all of this. So we're looking pretty positively. We're looking at over 2% growth in 2014.